Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about why I'm not praying for a miracle regarding my cancer. And I guess in this case, what I mean by that is, suddenly like going to the doctor and they're like, your scans are clear, there's no evidence of cancer, you're gonna live to be 90, kind of thing. So before I get into this, I do want to make just a couple disclaimers. First of all, so I believe in Jesus, but I know that not everybody who watches my videos does. And I'm not trying to be alienating. I'm not trying to be judgmental, coming down on what anybody believes. This is just what I believe. And, if it isn't what you believe, if you want some insight into, why I think how I think, then, you could watch the video for that reason. If you don't want to watch it, first of all, I won't know, and second of all, I won't be offended even if I do know. So my second disclaimer is just that I'm saying all this from the perspective of somebody who doesn't have kids, and if I had young kids, I think my perspective on this would be very different. I do think of my cat as my child, but I know it's not the same. I know it's not. So anyway, just those two things. Basically, I'm not trying to offend anybody with this video or upset anybody. Just trying to give my perspective on stuff. So basically, I guess my most fundamental problem with praying for a miracle for myself or having other people pray for a miracle for me is that I don't think that it's a miracle to stay in this world longer. Like I said, I believe in Jesus, I believe in heaven, and this is a fallen world. It's not how it's supposed to be. Cancer shouldn't be a thing. Getting a common cold shouldn't be a thing. That wasn't what God intended for the world. And so I don't really see how it's a miracle to stay in a fallen world away from God. There's suffering everywhere, and my life has been, not full of suffering compared to so much of the world. But it's still so apparent to me. I mean, everybody suffers. I guess living here for another 50 years or whatever, when my alternative is just going to heaven, I don't find that that's a miracle to me. In some ways, I almost feel like that's insulting to God for me. To be like, well, it'd really be a miracle if I got to stay away from you longer. Like, I don't think that makes any sense. So I just don't feel a need to be cured from cancer. I've always known I was going to die. Didn't know, the likely cause until recently. I just don't see a reason for a miracle to keep me from dying at this moment, and I don't think that not dying right now would be a miracle because it would just keep me away from God longer. I'm not a masochist, so, I do hope that when I die, it isn't prolonged, it isn't awful, it isn't really painful. But, no matter what, it will still be a finite event, and then after that, I'll just be in heaven, and, martyrs and people who have died horrible deaths over the centuries, the second they're dead, it's gone, it's erased, it's better, they're in paradise. And furthermore, I just, my particular vision of heaven is, you hear that heaven is forever, like infinite, and I think that means in all directions, like forward, backward, sideways, up, down, everything. Like, it isn't linear, and I think that we have a tendency to think of heaven as like a linear sort of thing. And so it's like right now, maybe like your grandparents are up in heaven and they're waiting for you, but I don't think heaven would be heaven if you were waiting for people to be there. So honestly, I think when I die and I get to heaven, we all will have been there all along, and so I'll see all you guys, and so I'm really not going to suffer except whatever cancer does to me in this life. But in any case, I just think that dying to this life is just not that bad. Like, I love The Lord of the Rings, and people probably know that about me. I'm a total just freak for Lord of the Rings. And now I'm going to hate myself for not doing this right, but I think it's the third one, it's Return of the King. So Pippin says, I didn't think it would end this way. Gandalf says, end? No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path, one that we all must take. The gray rain curtain of this world rolls back, and all turns to silver glass. And then you see it. White shores, and beyond, I'm going to start crying, beyond a far green country under a swift sunrise. Sorry, that line always just makes me so emotional. But Pippin says, like, well, that doesn't sound so bad. And Gandalf's like, no, it's really not. So I'm excited for heaven, you know? I'm not suicidal. I'm not a nihilist at all. But I've just thought my whole life that Jesus is better and that heaven is real. And to suddenly think that life here is better than the heaven that I've always said is better just doesn't make sense to me. There's also, for anybody who's familiar with the Bible, in the book of John, Jesus is in Gethsemane where he's praying before he's going to be crucified. And another just quote that I want to bring up is, so he's praying to God, and he says, Father, I want these whom you have given me to be with me where I am. And I found a blog that kind of addressed that too. And it said, someday Jesus' prayer for us to be with him will overrule our prayer to be spared physical death. And I think that's so true. Like, when we're praying to stay on this earth longer, we're kind of going against Jesus' prayer for us, that he just wants us back. He just wants us in heaven to be with him, like, fully. Because, you know, right now, like, I pray, I try to read my Bible, I don't do the greatest job, but it's not, you know, the same as just, like, being with someone, and, like, having, like, an intimate relationship where you get to, like, talk and see each other. And, I mean, that's where faith comes in, obviously, but I just imagine that, you know, being with Jesus in heaven will just be so amazing, obviously. That's an understatement, but again, just staying away from him isn't a miracle, and it's not something that I want. I'm ready to go whenever he's ready for me to go. You know, all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. So I'm just not, like, I have my moments. I don't want to be disingenuous. I have my moments freaking out about dying, but generally speaking, I'm just like, you know, if I've been away out of state and come home to see my family, is there any part of me that's like, oh no, I don't want to see them, or oh, I wanted to, like, no, I just want to see my family. So I just want to see Jesus, you know, and I'll see all you guys too, so I don't even have to go through that part of the pain of death. I think also with the whole thought of, like, that me dying is not like the end of the world, I've been kind of surprised at, you know, how many people say, like, oh, that's so sad though, because now you'll never get married, now you'll never have kids. And sometimes I even catch myself being like, oh, I wonder how many more Christmases I'll get, how many more Easters I'll get, how many more times I'll get to see the leaves fall, whatever. But the funny thing is, like, first of all those things that I think I'll be missing, like, I can't imagine that they aren't infinitely better in heaven. And I also find it kind of funny that, like, you know, so Jesus died when he was 33, and I don't think anybody is, like, upset for him, like, that, oh, he never got to have kids, he didn't get to have grandkids, like, he didn't get to experience life on earth more than 33 years, like, I think we're sad because, you know, he had to die for us when he didn't deserve any suffering or death at all. But when we think that he died and went back to heaven, I think we're all just like, yeah, heaven, way to go. Like, enjoy, go back where he was meant to be, and where is perfect, and there's just joy and light and love and everything. And we don't mourn what he missed on earth because we know that in comparison to heaven, it's nothing. And so that's the same attitude that I try to apply to me. Like, is anything that I'm going to miss on earth really a tragedy? I don't think so. I do feel sorry for everybody who I'll be leaving behind still in the fallen world with suffering. And it feels kind of vain or something to say that, like, I feel bad because people will miss me, because, assuming that people will miss me. I don't know, that seems prideful or something. Don't worry, I'm in therapy. That's probably a weird thing for me to say, but anyway, I know that if it was reversed, I'd be really just obviously so sad if my sister died or if my parents died or a friend or anything like that. So I'm sorry for that, but my family knows where I'm going, and they're going to know that I'm safe and happy and just joyful and with Jesus. So I hope that their suffering will be minimized by that. Another thought I have on the subject is just that, like, I've had pretty much a perfect life. I mean, I've always had food, I've always had shelter, I have a wonderful family who loves me, I've never been subjected to violence. You see pictures in the news and they're just heartbreaking of refugees and people who just have never had a home and have never had security, and children who don't have families, and it's also heartbreaking. And so honestly, I feel like prayers for me to stay alive are kind of like wasted. Like, I don't need to stay alive longer in the perfect life that I've led, the perfect earthly life that I've led. And so I just feel like if we're going to get organized about prayer, like, pray for refugees, pray for softening of hearts so there isn't this hatred that tears people apart and makes people suffer so much. And, the hatred that causes people to shoot people and to not care about children who don't have food and don't have shelter and don't have homes, like, that's what we need to pray for, not for me to live longer. Like, I don't need to. And just if we can pray for peace. I just think that if we're all going to pray for something, let's pray for peace and, ultimately just for Jesus to come back, because then everybody's suffering will end and we'll all just be done and happy and joyful and just everything will be love. And, that's just what I want the very most. I kind of feel like a miraculous healing is kind of a bad testimony in that way too, because it's like there are so many people who don't get healed. I mean, how many people die of cancer? Like, a lot. And how many people die of other things? A lot. And so for me to, like, get this special treatment and this, like, story that almost nobody else can relate to, like, oh, you got miraculously cured of cancer, why wasn't I? Why wasn't my mom? Why wasn't my sibling? Why wasn't my child? Like, I think that it's a better testimony to just try to live out, the Bible verse that says, to live is Christ, to die is gain. Because, if I can just live kindly and lovingly and showing people mercy and just trying to acknowledge God in what I do, like, I just feel like that's the best testimony, and facing death bravely is what I want to do, to just show what I believe, I guess. And, the end of that verse, to die is gain, like, that just proves that me dying is so not the end of the world. Like, it's the beginning of the world, probably. Beginning of my world, my eternal world, whatever. So, anyway, all that to say, like, people are kind. I appreciate the hearts when people say that they're praying for a miracle for me, but I just think that Jesus saved me, and that's the only miracle I really need in my life. So, yeah, let's just all pray for peace and pray for love in the hearts of everyone. So hopefully a lot of world suffering can be diminished even a little bit. As always, if anybody has any questions, or, like, especially if I've offended anybody, because I definitely didn't mean to, please feel free to contact me, to reach out, and I'd be happy to talk with you more, and hopefully explain better if I have said something that offends somebody. Thank you for watching. Bye.